We just got off our flight like 3 hours ago.
Wow.
Here.
Yeah.
So we're going like tomorrow.
Oh my God.
We're going back to Ireland.
Wow.
And we'll be there for a month.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming out to say hi to me.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah. Did you get to the studio at all?
Not back there.
No, we got to go in there too.
I remember seeing the photos for here. It looked so like surreal. You know?
Yeah,
it's kind of.
It's a little messy right now, but
This is messy.
yeah, it's a little bit messy, but we're
Clouds is up.
right. We're always adding new stuff to the studio for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love my favorite thing is the Macy balloon.
Yeah.
Like the
I like those.
statue of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really hoping we get to do a third Macy's, thing, and add a third balloon up there. So
Have those been like, do they use the same balloon multiple years in a row? Or
they do. They use them for about 6 years.
Oh,
wow.
really?
Yeah.
That long?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot better than what I thought. I thought they'd just toss them after a year.
Right. They actually, the first one they shredded. And then they had me sign something like some sort of certificate of authenticity or something so that at the like 100-year anniversary they can give out these types of things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Yeah, they used to let the balloons go, and they would shoot them down. Like they would just like at the end of the parade they'd float off, and then people would literally like with shotguns shoot them
That's
down.
awesome.
Like fireworks stuff is crazy.
I don't know. That's a good idea. Shooting down a Craig Heffley balloon.
Hey. So are we in the podcast yet, or
We just kind of cold
You
open.
just go. Okay,
Yeah, we
no
just go. We'll edit out anything. Like,
Okay,
don't worry. But
I guess the best way to start would be to talk about how big fans we are of
thanks. That's
the
true.
Wimpy Kid series. I've been reading them since the first one came out, since I was a kid.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
I'd read them every year when they came out, and I love the movies too. But whenever I was a kid, I was telling Veronica this the other day, I did not know that the books and the movies were the same thing. I remember I watched the movie first.
Yeah.
And then I got my granny actually gave me the first book because she got it for free in the newspaper.
Yeah.
And I was reading the book and I was like, this book is a total ripoff of the movie. Yeah.
When I was a kid, I went to see a band called Heart, which was really popular
Heart.
in the 70s. Okay, yeah. And so I went, and I was in 4th grade, and I watched the show, and I was just going out of my mind. I spent all my energy, and then I realized afterwards that was just the opening act. and there were some clues. For example, they were all male, the members of the opening act. And
Yeah.
of course, Farsh's got 2 female singers. So I don't know what I was thinking, but it's funny how your mind can
You just don't even like process it.
Yeah, right.
Or question anything.
Right, it's true.
I remember taking my little nephews to go see the movie when it came out. I think it was in like middle school or high school.
Yeah.
We all went together, and then eventually I got a job out of middle school doing like IT stuff and like working in the library. And I think Dog Days just come out.
Yeah, okay.
So all the kids were obsessed. They were all
Really?
obsessed with it. Yeah. So that's what got me into reading them. The movies.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I miss those days when it was like when every kid on the bus had it. Now there's a lot more choice out there, but those were really heady times. And actually, it's funny the movie, the way they came to be. You have 2 books out right now on this table, the first 2 books, and right when that second book was getting ready to come out is when the movie people came calling, like really aggressively.
Really?
Yeah, and so I was like a baby writer. I was like, the books weren't like a big smash success or anything like that yet. And all of a sudden I had like Hollywood knocking, and it was like a little bit scary because it was like, you have to make a decision right now or this opportunity is gone. And I wasn't ready, I wasn't ready for that. And so I decided to do it. But those early books, those movies came out pretty much when book 4 was coming out, the films were coming in. So I had these kind of 2 parallel lives at the same time.
That's really interesting because on our flight over here, we were listening to the audiobooks of it. We listened to the first 2 and then half of the third one.
Yeah.
And we noticed that there's a lot of different pieces that they took from the books and put into this movie.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how long was the production of the first one? Because they were taking like stuff from The Last Straw, putting it in the first movie. So I was wondering about that.
Yeah, it's kind of a complicated answer to that. It was the way that I wrote my books, if you read, I'd be embarrassed to read books 1 through.
Really?
I think I'd be embarrassed to read basically book maybe 1 through 11 or 12, because I didn't know anything about writing for screen. I didn't know about anything about writing a narrative that follows a certain format. So when they, these books, especially the first 2, are really just diary entries with a very thin plot, throughout. And so what happens then is if you hand it off to a screenwriter, they have to format it in a certain way.
Yeah.
Right. So that causes a lot of change, especially in a book like mine. So that, because to hit certain beats at certain moments and everything like that, you have to tell the story in a very particular sort of way.
Yeah.
I know how to do it now, but I didn't then. And it's sort of this very difficult thing for a writer, right? Because as a writer, you're like, this is my baby, this is what works, this is the world I've been living in. And then somebody else that you don't know takes it, says, no, this is the way it needs to be told. And they're right in a way, right?
Yeah.
But Hollywood it's really interesting because there is a big financial side to it, right? Of course, like, for example, they've tried to make a number of movies with, they have made lots of movies with the name Mars in the title, right? And so movie Mars Attacks, like all sorts of other movies with the name Mars, even Red Planet, right? Which is another one. And they've almost all bombed, right? Yeah. And so Hollywood needs to think, better not put out another movie with the name Mars in it, right? And then so when John Carter from Mars came along, they just stripped it down to John Carter, which isn't exactly sexy, but they're coming at it from a little bit of a different angle, right? And they know they have to tell kind of a certain type of story.
Yeah.
And even if you're like, but my books are really popular, my books are really working, they're like, for example, in my books, it's 2 guys, really. It's the story of these 2 guys, and you have to find a way to draw girls in too, because if only guys show up, you're not gonna sell a lot of tickets. So that explains Angie, that character.
I was gonna say, yeah. She kind of comes out of nowhere in the movie.
Right. Well, she's had a good career so far, though.
True.
Right.
I really, really liked the character development of Greg in the movies compared to like the books. At least the first couple books.
Yeah.
And the first couple films. Like, they really, really make him out to be this character that is just so selfish.
Yeah.
He's so self-centered. He's got such a large ego. You can't help but like love him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're talking about the books and why like you didn't know anything about like story structure, but they were still like a massive success in spite of that, just because people liked Greg Heffley so much.
Well, it's interesting. Greg, he won't age well in a way, because he's complicated. He's a complicated character. I mean, everything you need to know about Greg in the first few lines when he says, one day I'll be rich and famous.
Yeah.
Or, I won't have time to answer people's stupid questions. And it's just like, if you don't think that's funny, then you're not going to enjoy these books, right? And you also, I think that with that, the reader or the audience member, depending on whether you're reading or watching a film, has an understanding that Greg's going to fail, right? Because if you feel like Greg's going to be all powerful at the end, it's not so funny, And so when I say he's not going to age well, it's because our times change, norms change, attitudes about things change. All these things change, and comedy is really hard because you're trying to find that edge, and you're trying to find that edge and not go over it, right? And what happens is, things change over time. And so people's attitudes change, right? And then so maybe your stuff doesn't hold up as well as it did at the beginning.
Yeah.
And so that's something I have to think about all the time. Like, only in the past 2 years have people been like, well, Greg Heffley's a real jerk. I'm like, yeah, that's where all the humor comes from, right?
It's likable about him. Yeah. The first 3 movies to me are like perfect, like cringe comedies, not in a bad way, to where years watching it and you're like, oh my god, what am I doing? Right? Like, the humor derives from the fact that he thinks he's on top of the world, but then you gotta see reality like crash down on us.
Yeah. And it was interesting, Zach Gordon and Robert Capron, they're both very good friends of mine. I just went to Disneyland with them a few months ago.
The Florida or the California one?
California.
We were close by.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
So but we're like family, you know. But it's interesting because there are certain aspects of both of their characters that are very true to them.
Yeah.
I think which made them really work is, you know, I think their essence in a way was both true to them at that time.
I think all the lepers did a great
They're
job with
so good.
like Devin Bostic as Roderick.
Yeah.
Steve Zahn.
Yeah.
So, Steve Zahn is so good.
Yeah. And Devin Bostic is really interesting because Devin, I would have advocated against him, right? Because I thought of like a Roderick as like a blunt tool almost, right? Like he is in the books, right? And they cast this guy who's very charismatic and kind of a rock star, you know, has a bit of sex appeal to him, you know. So I didn't see that. Now, of course, I'm just absolutely thrilled. And, you know, but I just think it's interesting that even me as the author would have said, well, he doesn't seem like a good fit for the character.
Yeah.
Steve Zahn, too, was different, very different from Greg's father. And he looked different. You know, he's got full head of hair as like Greg's dad. Yeah, he's got a color. Things like that. So there's always this thing where you have your picture of how it should be. And then, you know, and then the reality turns out a little bit different, and it takes a lot of adjustment, especially if you're the author.
Do you have any like idea of like an actor in mind when designing these characters?
Not really, but I did have, you know, Toby from The Office.
Yeah.
I thought he would be a really good Frank Heffley. Yeah, he would have been.
That works. I can see that.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I was wondering, like, I'm not aware of like, if you have much background in art. So like, when designing the characters, like, how long did it take to get to the final designs? Was there much like in the concepting stages of what it took to get to?
It took 1 year, right? So it was. I really took my time with these books because I knew it was sort of my opus, it's my big chance. And I worked on it for a long time, like about eight years total. But one of the years was just refining the characters, because I think, you know, as you two are fans of animation, you know this very well, that something that really breaks the spell is when the characters change over time. Yeah. Like, I'll bet it would be difficult for you to watch season 1 and 2 of The Simpsons.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's because you just feel like, okay, that's when they were figuring it out, right? Same with my cartoons. I didn't want them to change over time. And despite my best efforts, they still have changed. Like, limbs have gotten shorter and longer and some other things, but then the heads have stayed the same, which I think is part of like, you don't want to feel like your cartoon characters can change, because the promise of a cartoon character is unchangeability.
Yeah.
That continuity always bothers me.
Yeah.
You look at like Steven Universe. That's a prime example of like continuity with art style, character design.
Yeah.
Well, also people in your, you know, you're native to YouTube, you're native to social media, things like that. And I would say that your generation is more, in a way, religious about the art, the creators, the consistency, the lore, the world building, all of that. Like, you know, my son Will, he's 19 now, but he grew up on Avatar, right? Yeah. And like he knew everything about it and everything, you know, everything that was happening. He's graduated now onto like Attack on Titan and things like that. He's slogging through One Piece. But I'm
gonna reach the end.
Right.
Never reach the end of One Piece.
Right. And he's close, sadly. But I think that he would be, if there was some inconsistency that seemed lazy, like that would really bother him.
Well, the media is so like readily available now, where like, you don't have to wait for it to come on TV. So we were watching a couple weeks back. We were watching some of the really early SpongeBob episodes, and that we'd noticed a lot of stuff where it's like that part there like looks awful, or like this background piece is so obviously like painted in, and then like somebody switches to a cell. Yeah, but you don't notice that when you're a kid because you're watching it on like a CRT. And
you can't notice that at all.
You only watch it once, then it's gone. You pause and rewind.
But also, like now with like a lot of older SpongeBob, they like digitally remastered it. So a lot of the small minor animation errors come out way as bigger red flags now. Yeah.
And why do you think why animation for the two of you? What is it about animation that's so different or so much better than live action? Or?
Well, I like film a lot too, but I don't know. There's something about being able to create a cartoon and give it its own character and make that come to life or see that come to life that just is so much more appealing, satisfying to me than film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think there's a lot more opportunity like in the variety of stories you can tell.
Yeah.
Same thing for books, because you can write whatever you want.
Yeah.
You draw whatever you want.
You can draw whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're working on a pilot.
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to independently fund an 11-minute animation right now.
Oh, yeah?
And it's going pretty well.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
The backgrounds are great.
What's the topic? I'm curious.
It's mostly slice of life. That's why I look so much. I like slice of life stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just mostly about two friends. Like,
Yeah.
it's them in like high school.
Yeah.
But it's not really about the school aspects. It's more about every other, like all the social aspects of it.
Yeah.
And that's mostly what I like. I like ingesting. So I want to try to make my own version of it.
Cool. Yeah. I just did an interview yesterday about that very topic, is that a lot of librarians are calling for like a more grown-up Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And I've said, you know what, I could see where there's an appetite for that. Because a lot of high schoolers read Diary of a Wimpy Kid just as a guilty pleasure. They were going to tell their friends. But yeah, of course there should be stuff that's for older people and with more mature topics. It's just not for me to write that.
Oh yeah, I think the teen demographic is something it's not really catered to a whole lot. It's either adults or kids.
Yeah.
It's not much in between.
Yeah.
Not really.
Well, the stuff for, like, you look at something like Euphoria, where it's like, there's no innocence to childhood in those. It's all the worst. It's the worst stuff.
The escalated.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, where's the stuff that's normal high school stuff? There were a lot of films made in the 1980s about, there was a lot of teen romp kind of comedies where they were a little bit more innocent and less dark.
Yeah.
But I don't see that so much in humor in writing, in books.
I think a lot of people try to go for the more dramatic, escalated point. Because that sells.
Yeah.
Rather than like
13 Reasons Why.
Yeah, like 13 Reasons Why. It's a perfect example.
Yeah.
Rather than like a humble story, a slice of life story. I feel like that's.
I was sorry, go on.
No.
I was gonna say I like slice of life stories where they can have those darker elements, but it's always in like service of things get better,
Yeah.
Or like you have to take the bad with the good.
Yeah.
That's my favorite type of story. Where it kind of puts the characters through hell, but there's always like a silver lining to it somewhat.
We were talking about something recently, like a movie that had a really good example of that. I can't remember what it was. Doesn't matter. There was something we were like, oh, that's so perfect because it mixes both of those things. Where it has really dark undertones, but at the same time, it has enough to where it does not like a depressing movie.
Was that Mr. Megora?
Yes, it was Mr. Megorium's Wonder Euphoria.
I didn't see it.
It is such a beautiful movie.
Really?
It's so sad.
But this this magic guy who
He's a magic
he runs like a
toy shop
magic toy store, yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole movie is about his
He's leaving.
he's leaving.
He's gonna die.
Gonna die.
Yeah.
And he's leaving the store to one of his employees. She doesn't know if she's ready for it yet. So it's a really good movie. It's really simple, but
It's
it
so
works perfectly.
good.
Brilliant.
It's so good, yeah. And it's so like Dustin Hoffman, Natalie Portman.
Yeah. Maybe I'll watch that with Lily.
You totally should. It's so wonderful. It's on HBO Max.
Okay, cool. We have that.
But oh man, I had a question. Okay.
Yeah.
So I really find Greg Heffley as a character that's kind of similar to Holden Caulfield.
Okay, yeah.
And I was curious if there is any kind of relation when developing that character.
Yeah, not conscious, but I think that once the book was finished, you look at the cover, we actually did mimic that.
Really?
Yeah. So we've got the red, we've got the red and then the
That's
gold
right,
pipe
the
across
gold.
it.
Yeah,
So if you
that's right.
strip all the elements off the cover, except for the word diary, you would have something that looks a little bit like Catcher in the Rye. But yeah, so that was a little bit of a nod. But yeah, Holden Caulfield, I like that character. Like a lot of people really don't like him, but yeah, he's an unreliable narrator. He's a hypocrite. Then he's like bad.
He's a phony.
Yeah, I think that's fun about, that's a fun thing to do. I think that there's a character in Judy Blume's book called Peter Hatcher. He's in Tales from Fourth Grade Nothing.
I remember that.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit like Greg too, sort of very put upon. You look at Greg on the cover of the books, and he the first one especially, he's just like a sad-looking guy. And in fact, he's sad on the cover of every single one of our, every single one.
Void of emotion.
Right. And so, and that's an interesting choice that's sort of subtle that you wouldn't really notice, is that it's like, here's this kind of sad character. Why do I want to read a book about that? In the UK right now, they're saying, you know what, we really need to put a sticker on the cover that says it's hilarious, you know, because kids are looking at it, encountering it for the first time, saying, well, this looks sad.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But I think that, I think that's what makes it appealing, because you want to know what's going on here. If Greg was happy on the cover of these books, you know, I don't think it would have done as well. It would have resonated with kids.
Or relatable.
It is more relatable.
Yeah.
Everybody has those feelings.
Yeah.
Devoid of emotion type feelings, especially in your adolescence.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He's such a fun character. I love Greg Heffley. We talk about him all the time.
We
really do. We talk about Greg. We make up scenarios walking by. We're like, what'd you do if Greg Heffley was here?
That's cool.
I was going to ask, Greg Heffley is talking about relatability. Definitely online, there's definitely been a resurgence in Wimpy Kid like memes and like the fan culture around it. What is your opinion on this and what people kind of like have twisted Greg Heffley into this almost like sociopath?
Right, yeah. Yeah, I feel I have kind of mixed feelings about that. It's kind of interesting. If you look at it from, you know, the way I see it is that there's a group of kids who grew up with the books, but still have a warm place in their heart for them. But they have to sort of put a veneer on top of it that's like a reinterpretation, right?
Yeah.
You know, Greg Heffley to me he's a complicated character. You know, I certainly wouldn't say he's a sociopath. I'd say, like I said, if just those first few lines, he's like, one day when I'm rich and famous. It's kind of like cocksure, I guess you could say. So I would say that, you know, what tends to happen is that people to ascribe something that's sinister to comics. You know, it's kind of like, I understand why it happens, makes me a little bit sad, because then I have to defend it and stuff like that. But I think that Greg is kind of, he's just like, he's a lot like I was as a kid. And I think I've grown up to be a moral and good person, you know, but the things that Greg does, you know, letting your friend take the fall for something that you did, things like that, those are typical, you know, those are things that we all do. So it's, if you add them all up and tell the story all in a line where you take all the worst things he ever did, sure, you know, he's gonna come out looking really bad. Yeah. But there are some times when he does the right thing too, especially in the movies. Like the books you have a chance to. In books, you don't have to follow a certain format, right? So Greg can really and truly not grow, you know, as a character. He can be sort of stuck, and that's what you want cartoon characters to do, is to stay the same they're the same at the end of the story as they were at the beginning, right? Yeah. In the movies, you have to tell a different kind of story. Those have to be coming of age stories. Like the audience isn't going to tolerate it if the character doesn't learn or doesn't grow, right? So even though I think Greg's characteristics are intact, I think that he still is changed, right?
I like that about the movie.
Me too.
Yeah, you like that.
I like that each of the movies kind of focuses on his relationship with a different person. Like the first one's about him and Riley, the second one's about him and Roger, and the third one's about him and his dad.
Yep.
That's what I love about the movies, is that Greg does, and it's a lot of subtle changes. Like in the third movie, Roger isn't as like mean to him anymore because of the second movie. I always appreciated stuff like that.
Yeah.
And obviously, part of that's because it would be weird if Greg didn't change, because Zachary Gordon, he looks so like so much older and compared to the first.
He's like a little bit buff. Yeah. Oh, man, why'd you have to get strong? And you're in a bathing suit, you know. But yeah, but in a way, it's like you sort of run out of what's the word I'm looking for? Your space gets smaller and smaller, right? Let's say, for example, that in Disney Plus world, we make 16 movies, 20 movies or something like that. It's like, is Greg really going to learn a lesson? Like by the end of that stretch, he's going to be like the perfect, you know?
I know what you mean.
You sort of have to have him keep regressing and keep reverting, you know, even though Greg really learns to value Rowley's friendship by the end of the first movie, of both live action and Disney Plus, like he still has to be frustrated with Rowley in the next movie. You know, you can't just be like, I learned from the first movie that
Not a
you're
perfect friend.
right. Yeah, right. So that's hard to do. It's the reason that that things tend to have a creative lifespan, right? Is that a creative lifespan for something like a sitcom tends to be about 8 years, because you sort of paddle in all the different waters, and then you start paddling in the same waters again. Then that's when you start doing stunt casting and things like that. For a comic strip, there really is no lifespan, because there's not a lot of character development, right? Yeah. And you just want the characters to have the same traits over and over again. In what I'm doing, where there are stories, it does get a little bit dicier, right? It's a little bit less clear. And yes, like I just wrote a book here, The Deep End, a year and a half ago, and the family goes on a road trip, to this place, a camping place. And a lot of people criticize me and say, we already had the road trip movie, The Long Haul. I'm like,
but that's unnecessary.
Right.
Like, you don't only just go on one road trip in your lifetime as a family.
Exactly, right. So, but it does get hard to be inventive, and I think that kind of starts to suggest an ending to, the series, and which is kind of disappointing, because I like to think that, maybe you ever have kids yourself, that Diary of a Wimpy Kid might still be, having new books.
It'll be in my household. That's
right. That's good. Yeah. So it's I hope I don't have to end it anytime soon.
I don't think you should.
Well, thank you.
Like I said, Greg Heffley is one of the most likable characters.
I was going to ask, was there ever a thought to make a fourth movie with the same cast? Was that ever a thought of getting that into pre-production? Because I remember hearing somewhere that there were rumors of like a Cabin Fever movie at one point. I'm not sure if that was real.
Yeah, it's complicated. I don't think that we talked openly about making a fourth Wimpy Kid movie with that cast. But it was clear they were getting older.
Yeah, I remember watching the interviews for the third one, and every time they're like, "You'll do another," and they're like, "I don't think we can."
Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of. I think Devin could have kept doing it, and the adults could have kept doing it. We would have had to have recast Manny. But I think that everybody knew that we had to stay for as long as we could.
Yeah.
Also, I think that the third movie didn't do as well. Sometimes like that factors into like the budget and the take and things like that. So we didn't really do that. But even in the animated movies, we made 2 animated movies with the cast, and there's only a small window where a teenager or a preteen kind of has a certain kind of voice, a certain affect, where they're not a child, but they're not yet into that next stage.
Yeah.
And it's only like a 2-year window, so it gets, you get the feeling that you stay in days too long.
Yeah.
If you keep making them.
You like Hey Arnold? Didn't you change voice actors like 4 times?
Dude. It's very, very jarring.
Yeah.
It's always stuck out to me.
Yeah.
I always like the original one.
Yeah.
One.
And could you get into it, like even when, so you see the next season, the voices change and it's jarring at first, but then
I always loved it anyways.
Yeah.
It was kind of a thing where it's like I had such devotion to the characters and the show itself that I didn't really care if the voices changed.
Yeah.
Or they didn't give as much of a good inflection as I wanted them to.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting question. It's something that we are keeping in mind as we're looking to the future of the animated movies.
Yeah.
Is you say, do we try to cast somebody who can mimic the voice of the original, or do you cast somebody who inhabits character, but the voice might really not come close to the original?
I always feel like if you're encapsulating the character, that means more than just mimicking
The voice.
what you'd previously done.
Yeah,
You
might be right.
Well, it's different interface. Someone could come along and be better than the original,
Yeah, right.
Like the Devin, the casting for Roderick. Like it wasn't what you had in mind, but then it ended up being, the character. So
Do you remember in what is it, Avatar, Uncle Iroh, or
yes,
he died. The voice actor dies, and then there's a whole season where he doesn't speak at all.
Yeah, pretty much. Like a jail cell.
Just in jail.
Just like
drunk.
But he's working out.
They were trying to figure that out.
That episode is so sad.
Yeah.
I love Last Airbender. You still haven't seen it. I know.
The first episode. I announced though that it's on some of Toy Story 4 where Mr. Tito had voice actor. He died too.
Oh, yeah.
He's like stands around in the movie. He doesn't say a word.
It's like a cheap way of getting the character there. Oh, maybe cheap is not the right word. Oh man, I wanted to tell you, we made a drinking game out of the movie, out of the Wimpy Kid movie.
We were gonna. We had to drink every time Greg was.
Cheese touch.
Every time it said the cheese touch. Every time Greg was ending Riley.
Anytime they say Zooey Mama.
Yeah, which gets very bad
A
later
lot.
on. Yeah. Anytime Shrek moved to the screen, he had to drink twice.
Yeah, he had to drink twice.
And he appeared a lot more than we remember.
Wait, and he talks about the cheese touch when it was on screen. So there's another one too. There's
funny.
one last one.
That's funny.
Oh, anytime someone says Greg Heffley. Like,
Oh, yeah.
name.
I knew like Patty. She always called him Greg Heffley.
Everybody calls him only Greg Heffley.
Yeah, so it was. I was throwing up with it.
Yeah, it was. I had to stop. I was like, I can't keep going.
You should get out if you have a chance to get out to Minneapolis to see the musical. It's really
There's a Diary of a Wimpy Kid musical.
yeah. It came out a few years ago. It came out about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was is really good, right? And then it sort of like went back underground, and now it's coming back out in just a few weeks, in about a month.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it's
I'm not here. You gotta
Maybe we should.
check it out.
yeah, it's in Minneapolis, and it's like a totally different expression of, it's a different expression of the story, different and better in a lot of ways. So it really has been my favorite thing, because you feel differently when you watch a musical than you do reading a book or even watching a movie. So they really ring out all the emotion.
I'm gonna say like the music sets the tone,
Yeah.
gives you the mood, the vibe.
Yeah. It's really good.
Do you have any idea? Like, did you have any like inkling of that? Writing the first book would lead to all this, like a musical, 4 movies.
Yeah.
An animated one.
No, 5 movies.
Yeah,
5 movies. Yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, well, honestly, in a way, like I was like Greg Heffley.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Say, like, you have that rock star dream.
Yeah.
It's sort of like your parents tell you when you grow up. Well, you can be president one day, and you're, I think that every kid, like most American kids, kind of have this kind of feeling of like that greatness is right there for them. And especially now that untalented people are famous for being famous, in reality TV and things like that.
Yeah.
And so I think that in that same way that I was like, I'll be, blah, blah, blah. And when I first met my editor, I was like, well, I'm on my way now. And so I did have sort of visions of a grand.
You achieved Greg Heffley's dream.
Right. But I didn't have a realistic, it wasn't a very realistic dream.
Yeah. I guess one of the last things I wanted to talk about was your Twitter account, which is obviously how this all started, because I reached out to you on Twitter, and you kind of messed around with me for a while. She was there whenever you replied to me about the Butch Hartman's thing, and I was like,
oh yeah.
We were like drinking champagne in my backyard, and he looked at his phone. He's like, I
was like, I screwed it up. I messed it up.
was like, why'd you have to mention that?
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. I had
No, it's really funny.
You've been using your Twitter more frequently as of recent. Is that like an intentional thing to kind of like get more in touch with the fan base, or I don't know, just mess around?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because for a long time I saw Twitter as a one-way communication device, right? It's just like I have a microphone and I'm saying to you what I want you to hear me say, right? And then my life is so busy that it's unrealistic. Like if people write to me, they might need something from me, or things like that. It gets very
That kind of expectation.
Yeah, it's like when you come to our library or something, like it gets very overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
But there's this certain zone that I've found I really like, and it would include interacting with you, which is like, it doesn't require a lot. You can be snappy, you can be funny, and then leave it, and it's like, and actually I've been off of it for like 2 weeks for some reason. I'm not sure why. I think I got behind, and then you get depressed about, no, I can never catch up. But I like that, and I only post like once or twice a month. Like post an actual thing, it's usually, hey, I'm interviewing this author, something like that. But do like that kind of snappy back and forth. And I like it when people, it's also a good place to try out humor and also to learn the language of this generation in a way.
Yeah.
Well, we were just talking to Mark Carroll about that.
We were.
Like, a couple days ago. He said the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's like you know, I get the I think I get the rhythms, right? I'm 51 years old, so but I think I get the rhythms, and it is its own language. Like, and if I ever did a Roderick book, like I think I would do it. I'd write it in that way.
Yeah.
You know, all lowercase, no punctuation. You know, all that kind of.
You like the capital letter, lowercase letter, capital letter.
You know, I've never understood that because I'm like, I always look for a clue. Like, did they spell a word with a capital letter?
It's-
No reason.
There is no reason.
No reason.
Usually, I think the biggest thing was like, it was like a picture of SpongeBob with his arms like this, and it's supposed to be him mimicking, like kind of mimicking someone, and then like doing the capital and lowercase, like the phonetic way of mimicking someone. I never got it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a taunting kind of thing.
Right.
There's some things that like that just goes over my head. But that's one of them. I'm so glad that you gave us your time.
Oh, thank you.
We could just gush to you about this.
I can't believe you came all the way out here. So it's
We had to. We had to.
You know, it's funny. I always wonder, like when I was my favorite cartoon was when I was growing up was Carl Barks's Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge comics, and I actually have a statue in the other room.
I know.
of Uncle Scrooge. Yeah. And it was like I kept always wanting to like write him, and then I thought he was probably dead, and that the truth is he was like 80, 90 years old, and then I never did, and he passed away. But I had this vision of making a pilgrimage and, you know, saying, you know, telling them how much I like this stuff and stuff like that. And I always wondered if that would happen to me. You guys are like the first.
Oh, really?
You know, in that generation that read it, and now you're coming into your own in your professional career and all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool for me.
Yeah. The thing, whenever we started this podcast, which was really, like we said earlier, it was just an excuse to like meet people who work like, yeah, sure, meant to us something to us, and it was we would agree like we're doing this. We can't like do it over like Skype. We have to like fly out to do it first. And that's where the exists is like
amazing.
It's surreal, kind of sitting here, all this cool stuff around.
Yeah,
And it's also more so incredible because you don't ever think you're gonna be here. You know, you don't ever think that these kinds of opportunities happen. You just gotta ask and see if it works, and it usually does.
Yeah, well, you have to make your luck, right? And that people, you know, I admire you for that. And so, what's the phrase? There's
Mouths don't get fed.
well, yeah, fortune favors the bold.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah, and people like to talk about themselves, so you're probably going to find you know, a lot of people. And then, of course, what happens is you get your if you've had a few successful interviews, then you say, we interviewed this person, and then that makes the next person say, okay, they're saying
They're more inclined.
yeah, because like that, the fear would be, who are these people, and are they going to get, you know, play gotcha with me or something like that, or embarrass me, you know? So
Our whole intention is just to gush about our favorite things with the creators. You know,
that's really cool. Well,
that's all we want.
I wish you much success in that regard.
Thank you.
All right, and good luck with your pilot.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
All right,
I'll send you a copy.
thanks.
I think that's a wrap.
All right.